Hey guys and girls or whoever's watching, welcome back to another Spanish tutorial by Busy's OK channel. So this is video number 6 in a series of 50 Spanish tutorials that will get you through the whole Spanish 1 curriculum. So without further ado, let's get into today's agenda. But first, let's start with a recap from our previous tutorial. So if you still remember the song, El something o, la something a, Los something O's and there's las something as. You probably remember Spanish, and that el is used for masculine and singular nouns. Real, real example being el fútbol, meaning the soccer, basically. And then la is used for feminine and singular nouns. Los is used instead of els, which is not a real word in Spanish, to go in front of masculine and plural nouns. Then las goes in front of feminine and plural nouns. So now our two questions from last lesson were de donde eres and donde vives. That mean where are you from and where do you live, respectively. So just like in English, the first question is used more when asking someone where they're from originally. So you would say yo soy de, meaning I am from. I just add a place name. For example, Tejas de Sur, meaning I am from southern Texas. And then donde vives means where do you live? And obviously this is interpreted to mean where a person lives at the moment. So you'd answer by saying yo vivo, meaning I live, then adding en to mean in, then adding in a place name like Arizona de Este, meaning I live currently in eastern Arizona. So hopefully we've got all that down. Let's move into today's unit. So first, let's look at some more Spanish activities. For example, arte and música mean art and music respectively. Since the concept is very universal with both art and music, it stands to reason that the words would be very similar. Remember, one is masculine, like el something o, and the other is feminine, like la something a, la música. Okay, anyway, then cantar means to sing. If any of you play in an orchestra or band, then you've probably come across the word cantabile in an orchestra piece. It basically means that the piece should be able to be sang as well as it is played on an instrument. So that's why the word is cantar. And then jugar means to play. So think of a game where you have to knock down milk jugs. So jugar. So because the game is something that is played, you would expect the word to be fairly similar, and it is juego. Then participar is almost exactly like its English equivalent, participate. Then caminar means to walk, like, let's see, I came on a walk. Okay, then andar means to walk. This is probably where musical terms will also come into play, because when something is played, like a musical composition, at an andante pace, that means it's played slowly, like if you were walking. Then correr means to run, like basically a corral. Then equipo means team or group. So think of yourself as being equipped by other friends and whoever else is in a group. Check out these practice sentences to help you understand the 10 words. It's okay if you don't understand the whole sentences, but hopefully you can pick out a couple words that you do know. I have the English translations right there. El arte es mi clase favorita. Yeah, this could also help you practice your pronunciation. Los instrumentos hacen música. Me gusta cantar. We've got through the simple one. Me gusta jugar al ajedrez. Yo quiero jugar un juego de fútbol. Me gusta participar en los clubes. No me gusta caminar muy lejos. Es interesante andar distancias pocos. Mi club favorito es el club de correr. es esencial trabajar en equipo. So feel free to check out the slide as you please, but now we're moving on to the next topic. So here are the days of the week, and if any of these names look familiar, it's because the days of the week in Spanish are actually named after Roman gods. So lunes is named after Luna, the goddess of the moon, which makes sense because that's how you say Monday in Spanish. Monday, moon day. Then Martes is named after Mars, the goddess of war, the god of war, sorry. And it's how we say Tuesday. Then Miércoles is Wednesday, named after Mercury, the Roman messenger god. Makes sense, because it seems to go by very fast, just like Mercury the planet. Because when you start, you feel like you're barely into the week. Once it's over, you realize you only have 2 days until the weekend. Okay, and then Jueves is named after Jupiter, the god of the sky, and it means Thursday. And Viernes is named after Venus, the goddess of love, which makes sense because it's named after Friday, probably the day of the week that everybody loves. Then Sabado is actually not named after a god. I could say it's named after Saturn, but it's also named after a Hebrew word meaning to rest, as in the Sabbath day. And Domingo, you can think, is also not named after a god in particular, but you can think of it as meaning someone who's dominant, as in the Lord's Day. That's how you say Sunday in Spanish. Now let's look at the months of the year. It's really the only one you'll have to memorize out of here is Enero. You can think of the NE as standing for a new year, because that's basically what January is. Other than that, the other months are just a little different, but I'll read them to you just in case. So Febrero is February, Marzo is March, Abril is April, Mayo is May, like Cinco de Mayo, Junio is June, Julio is July, Agosto is August, Septiembre is September. One more thing before I keep going. Just like the last 4 months of the year in English all end in BER, they all end in BRE, with the rest of the year ending in O. So I point that out. So Octubre is October, then Noviembre is November, finally Diciembre is December. I keep the slide on for a couple more seconds to allow you to practice these words. Now let's move on. So if you're curious on how to tell the year in Spanish, let's look at these large numbers in Spanish. So in my first tutorial, we left off at 100, which is 100. Then for multiples of 100, like 200, you just say whatever number is in the hundreds place, and then add cientos. For example, 200 is 200, 300 is 300, and then it follows this for every multiple of 100 except 500, which would actually be 500. It helps to remember, it sounds like quince, which is also an irregular number with 5 in it. Then mil is 1000, because a million in English is 1,000 times 1,000. Then dos mil, and so on, is used for multiples of 1,000. So tres mil is 3,000, 4,000 is cuatro mil. So remember, you only have to pluralize cientos. We're talking about multiples of 100. But when talking about multiples of 1,000, you only have to say mil, not miles. So for example, to say 2025, or 2025 if you prefer, which is the current year, hopefully, you would just combine these numbers to say 2000, 2000, then 20 is 20, finally 5 is 5. And you could use this for any numbers, or basically specify any number. For example, 1,638,095 be 1,638,905. But for now, I just want you to learn these numbers like millón is 1 million, and billón is 1 billion. And for any numbers beyond that, it's basically just the same as in English, but without the initial I. So for example, a trillion is trillón, and so it just repeats that pattern to infinity. So now we're done for today. Thank you for your patience. I know some of that was really tough to get through. But if you like the content, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll be back with more Spanish tutorials before you know it. And hopefully it will be sooner than 2 weeks from now. Adios.